Black people do not hang themselves. Dennoriss Richardson, Javion Magee, Trevante Shepard Helton, Earl Smith, Demartravion Trey Reed, Torrance Tory Medley, Kyle Bassinga, Juliana Umba Nzita, Cedric Longanga Tayuhe, Tania Nicole Miller, Gerard J. Jackson, Tasia Fortune, Justice Kai James, Demetrius Eugene Fleming. Remember those names because those are names connected to reported hanging deaths in America in just the last few years. Some were found hanging from trees, others under different hanging circumstances, and several of their deaths were officially ruled suicides. Some families have questioned these conclusions, some cases have received additional scrutiny, and some investigations have left communities asking questions. And there are undoubtedly names that aren't on this list today. People whose deaths never became national stories. People whose families didn't have thousands of followers, attorneys holding press conferences, or news cameras showing up. This film, this documentary, this YouTube video is for them too. Because there's a sentence I kept hearing while researching these deaths. There was no evidence of foul play. Another case, suicide. Another case, no foul play. Another black body, another hanging, another explanation. And eventually I found myself asking, why are we moving past this so quickly? Because there's perhaps no image more historically loaded in America than a black person hanging from a tree. And somehow, here we are in 2026. Black people do not hang themselves. I want you to take a look at these trees. To most people, this is just nature. It's a place of peace. It's a place to find quiet. But there's another history here that I want to bring to your realization. For generations of Black Americans, the image of a tree could mean something completely different. Because there was a time in America when black bodies hanging from trees weren't mysteries being investigated. They were warnings. Lynching was racial terrorism, and it wasn't hidden. People gathered to watch. Crowds came, families came, photographs were taken, images were circulated, and black bodies were left hanging as messages to everybody who remained alive. The message was simple: know your place. After slavery ended, Black Americans began attempting to exercise freedoms that had been denied to them for generations. They voted, they purchased land, they opened businesses, they built schools, they entered politics, they accumulated wealth, and Black progress challenged the racial hierarchy America had built. Violence became one of the tools used to push Black people back down. The Equal Justice Initiative has documented nearly 6,500 racial terror lynchings of Black people between 1865 and 1950. Nearly 6,500 documented human beings, men, women, children, and those are simply the documented cases. Not every lynching involved hanging. Black people were shot, Black people were burned, Black people were beaten, Black people were drowned, Black people were tortured, but the rope and the tree became an enduring symbol of racial terror. That's why this conversation cannot begin in 2026. It begins here. Lynching isn't simply designed to kill somebody. It was designed to control everybody who survived. Imagine being a Black father and seeing another Black man hanging from a tree. You understood the message. Imagine being a Black mother trying to raise a son in a community where a mob could accuse him of something and kill him before he ever entered a courtroom. You understood the message. Imagine being a Black child walking past a place where somebody who looked like you had been murdered. You understood the message. Stay quiet. Don't challenge the system. Don't become too powerful. Don't forget your place. That's terrorism. Many lynchings weren't secret crimes committed in darkness. They were public. People posed for photographs beside murdered black bodies. Some photographs became postcards. Think about the level of dehumanization required for that. Somebody's father, somebody's brother, somebody's child dead. And somebody else wanted a souvenir. That's the history we're carrying into this conversation. For decades, Black Americans and civil rights advocates fought for federal anti-lynching legislation. Bill after bill failed. Year after year, decade after decade, America did not finally enact a federal law specifically making lynching a hate crime until the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act in 2022. 2022. I want to say that for you one more time. 2022. You got to sit with that for a second. Some of you watching this have children older than America's federal anti-lynching law. The law carries the name of Emmett Till, who was a 14-year-old black boy brutally murdered in Mississippi in 1955. Emmett's mother, Mammy Till Mobley, refused to allow America to look away from what had happened to her son. She made America look. And perhaps that's what we have to do now. Perhaps that's what we need to do again. Not accuse without evidence, not invent conspiracies, but look. Pay attention. Ask questions. Because history teaches us that silence has never protected black people. Fast forward to America today. September 2024, Javion Magee, a black truck driver from Illinois that is now found dead in North Carolina with a rope around his neck at a tree. Authorities classified his death as suicide. His family and civil rights leaders, attorneys questioned everything. And in that same month in Alabama, Dennoriss Richardson, who was 39, found hanging in an abandoned property. His death was classified as suicide. His family rejected that conclusion. A private autopsy commissioned by his family subsequently said additional investigation was necessary to exclude the possibility of a staged suicide. June 2025, Earl Smith, found hanging from a tree in Albany, New York. Authorities determined suicide. Family members questioned it. September 2025, Demartravion Trey, a freshman at Delta State University in Mississippi, found hanging from a tree on his college campus. Authorities ruled his death a suicide. His family sought an independent autopsy. November 2025, Torrance Tory Medley found hanging from a tree at a Wisconsin golf course. Authorities concluded suicide. And then 2026. February, Georgia, Kyle Bassinga, reported missing, later found hanging from a tree in Fair Oaks Park in Cobb County. Police said surveillance, phone information, and witness accounts indicated Kyle entered the area alone. Investigators reported finding no evidence of foul play. Kyle Bassinga, you've got to remember his name. May 2026, Charlotte, North Carolina, Juliana, Umba, Nzita, a child originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, found hanging from a tree on a church property. Authorities classified Juliana's death as suicide. But investigative reporting raised questions about how quickly that conclusion was reached. Reports indicate there was no autopsy. Her cell phone reportedly had not been located. Reporting also indicated the individual who discovered her had not been interviewed before the case was closed. And her death was classified as suicide within days. Why wouldn't you investigate everything? She's 16. Why wouldn't you find the phone? Why wouldn't you interview everybody? Why wouldn't you perform an autopsy? Why wouldn't you eliminate every conceivable possibility before telling a grieving family that it's suicide? And that's what bothers me. Because Juliana deserves certainty, not speculation from me, not speculation from the internet, certainty. Her name is Juliana Nzita. She was 16 years old. Remember her. June 2026, Harrisburg, North Carolina, Cedric Tayuhe, I hate if I pronounce the name wrong and I apologize, 36, a Congolese immigrant who had publicly expressed pride in his homeland. Cedric was reported found hanging from a tree at Harris Depot Park. Authorities said evidence was consistent with suicide. Another black man, another tree, another suicide determination. His name is Cedric. You've got to remember him. I just want to be honest with y'all. Black people don't hang themselves. Now, that's not to take away from those that have possibly taken their own life as a result. But the rate of actual suicide compared to the amount of unsolved hanging deaths, we have to pay attention to. Black people do not hang themselves is the alarm going off inside of a people whose ancestors actually were hung from trees. It's the voice that says, wait, don't close that file yet, check again. Interview everybody, find the phone, check every camera, do the autopsy, preserve the evidence, listen to the family, and then when you've done everything, tell us what happened. Because the standard shouldn't be, can we prove somebody else did it? The standard should be, have we done everything reasonably possible to establish exactly what happened? That's what every black family deserves, America. That's what every family deserves. I don't want black people leaving this video afraid of trees. I don't want people leaving convinced there's some nationwide organization doing this. I want you leaving this video doing one thing, paying attention. Because questions aren't conspiracies. Questions are how investigations work. And skepticism isn't evidence either. That's important. Our suspicion doesn't prove murder. A police statement doesn't magically erase every legitimate question. So we have to follow the evidence and demand transparency. And don't stop caring simply because the news cycle has moved on. Don't get desensitized because they're constantly putting this in front of us. Because my fear is that these hangings are going to become so numbing to us that we're just going to see it as another part of our livelihood. And it shouldn't be that way. And this may be the most important part of this entire journey that we've taken thus far. Because my list isn't complete. It can't be. There were black people lynched in America whose names history never properly preserved. People disappeared. Families never got answers. Deaths never became national stories. And even today, there are people whose deaths received nothing more than a few paragraphs in the local newspaper. Nearly 6,500 documented black people were victims of racial terror lynching in between 1865 and 1950. Thousands of lives, thousands of families, thousands of names. And now in 2026, black Americans are once again looking at headlines containing words. Black hanging tree. Don't be afraid to ask questions either. Demand thorough investigations. Demand transparency. Demand that black families receive the same urgency, resources, and care you would want if the person hanging from that tree was your child, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father. Because before Kyle became a headline, he was Kyle. Before Juliana became a case, she was Juliana. Before Cedric became a statistic, he was just Cedric. Before Tonia became a question, she was Tonia. Before Jay became an investigation, he was Jay. Before Tasia became a news story, she was somebody's mother. And before any of them became names in this documentary, they were alive. That's what I want us to remember. So when I say black people do not hang themselves, hear what I'm actually saying. I'm saying our history will not allow me to see another black body hanging from a tree and simply look away. Not anymore. Say their names. Ask the questions. Follow the evidence. Demand the truth. And whatever you do, pay attention, because history already taught us what can happen when nobody does. Black people don't hang themselves. Go in grace.